Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Suman Sinha, and I am a thinker, writer, and a blogger. I am again here today uh, to give a lecture on another unique topic called philosophy of corruption. This article is also posted on my blog. Everybody talks about corruption in our society, especially in politics and governance. We debate and analyze the degree of corruption at various levels of the municipal, provincial, and federal governments. In third world countries, one has to bribe government officials and politicians at every stage of day to day life to get things done. These bribes may be for the purpose of obtaining a power connection for the industries or a license, getting legal protection from the police, or obtaining pension upon retirement or any legitimate work which should have been done otherwise in the normal course of working. Public services provided in the governments of these developing nations do not work without greasing the greedy palms of the officials or the politicians. People are not surprised or ashamed, even if financial scandals of colossal proportions are exposed one after another. People point fingers towards politicians and government officials and pass all the blames of this acute malady on them. As a matter of fact, no parts of this world is free from this moral putrefaction and loss of national character. But the problem is acute in third world countries, including developing nations where every department of the government, financial institutions, educational establishment, health organizations, private or public institutions are engaged in corrupt practices. Nobody is concerned about the welfare of people and society or suffering humanity. Majority of them are shamelessly engaged in amassing ill-gotten wealth at the cost of helpless and destitute. The greed for money or power has made them inhuman and no less than a vulture in character. As such, corruption in those countries have become blisters on the face of nations, resulting in chaotic and dysfunctional governance. We as citizens of the world feel mortified the way society and nations are degrading all across the globe. In the hope of having corruption free governance, people in those countries replace the governments, but replacement also proved to be equally incompetent and corrupt. The multitude of corruption keeps growing like a rolling snowball, and sometimes it appears to have become a way of life. Those who are indulged in corrupt practices also complain about corruption when their interests are not taken care of. It seems that the abyss of greed and moral turpitude is going to engulf the entire society and civilization per se. And the irony is that people sigh away in voicing concerns because their concerns are also dictated by their calculated political agenda, selfish interest, or impoverished morality. They keep on whining but do not do anything because corruption in society in fact reflects their own selves and blemished faces in the mirror. Their leaders are corrupt because they too are corrupt ethically, ideologically, morally, and spiritually. And as such, they elect the most corrupt among in a democratic framework. As such, they elect the most corrupt among them in a democratic framework. Now, the rule of law. Corruption or corrupt practices thrive in countries. Corruption or corrupt practices thrive in countries where the rule of law is not enforced in its letter and spirit. Or in other words, public and politicians alike are actively engaged in undermining the enforcement of the rule of law. The rule of law implies that every citizen is subject to the law And there cannot be any exceptions in its essence and enforcement. Even if God or the most powerful people are caught in violating laws of the land, they should be tried and punished like anybody else to establish fear and respect for the rule of law. Wherever the rule of law works in toto or to some extent, in toto or to some reasonable extent, societies are free of corruption and ordinary people get the same treatment or services which are meant for the president or prime ministers of those countries. Everybody respects law and seldom people think of violating or circumventing the local laws. This gives rise to a civilized society and enforcement of the rule of law and provides people happiness, security and good quality of life. In contrary, people in third world nations subjugate the law under them by bribing lawmakers and law enforcing agencies and thereby making a mockery of the entire legal and administrative system. Therefore, questions come up that how and why we become corrupt in managing our society or nation. What are the root causes of corruption? Are we born corrupt or become corrupt in the process of growing? Is it the human nature to become corrupt in a given scenario? Is it the character of an individual or the entire population? Is it due to lack of education and understanding? Can we overcome our corrupt behavior? Is it a national character or one of few individuals? Is there any role of local laws or regulations promoting the growth of corruption? Is corruption all over the world or in few countries? If a nation and its people are less corrupt, then what makes it a better country than other corrupt nations? How can we overcome this malignancy which is destroying our civil lives? Before we find answers of our questions, first we have to find out what are the root causes of corruption or from where corruption originates at the first place. Generally, we treat corruption in terms of financial misappropriation, embezzlement or scandals, but ignore the key factors which are the building blocks of our morality, and their absence breeds the corruption in the society. As a matter of fact, if we lay the foundation of our moral and ethical standards by ignoring the quality of thoughts in our daily lives, then we will never be able to build a strong character for ourselves and the nations and the nation as a whole. We forget that financial corruption is one of the causes which is the outcome of overall moral and ethical corruption within us, and which is spoon-fed to us from the day we are born. Therefore, I will like to mention the proverb that charity begins at home. Children are born with all simplicity and purity. Their mind is like a blank slate or white canvas ready to be written for worldly knowledge or painted with words of wisdom. As they grow, we adults, as their parents and primary teachers, start programming their innocent minds by providing our biased, cocooned, medieval belief or tainted knowledge. If we are enlightened mentally and spiritually, then we program their mind with words of wisdom, and in contrary, if we are corrupt mentally and filled with negativity, then we make them like us. The programming of a child's mind and process of information is also transferred to them by way of audio-visual presentations given by us in our daily discharge of chores inside the house. For example, when we present our short-temperedness in front of them and use abusive languages with other members of the family, when we talk foul about our friends and relatives or backbite them in front of our children, when we make a negative analysis or manipulate things in our favor to show our smartness in front of them, when we insult our elders and misbehave with them shamelessly, when we smoke or drink or watch adult movies or use prohibitive words in front of them, thinking they are too young to understand, when we are so greedy that for money we are willing to cheat our kins and siblings and present our wickedness in front of them, when we differentiate between offsprings on the basis of the gender and give more importance to boys over girls, when we give more importance to one child over another due to their looks, height, color of skin, or their manipulating accents or behavior, etc. Then a child's mind starts getting poisoned by listening or watching us and the surroundings, and they grow up with a mental framework of accepting the family environment as a normal way of life. Our foul languages, wrong accents, behavior, and audio visual presentations in daily life cast shadow in the overall atmosphere of the family. As such, we as parents start the process of corrupting their minds from the day one they are born. Now the question comes up, does education makes a difference? Once we corrupt the family environment, then we cannot expect our society to be corruption free. And if the society is corrupt, then how can we expect our leaders to be honest and trustworthy? In my experience, modern education system has zero roles in making a society corruption free. I have seen several so-called educated people from premier institutions indulge in bribery and having no control on their burgeoning greediness and selfishness. I could have provided several examples of politicians and businessmen having graduated from Oxford and Harvard University indulged in bribery and corruption of mammoth proportion. As a matter of fact, few people in the helm of banking and finance from these schools having an endless greed for money caused the crash of world market in the year 2008, thereby wiping out life savings of hundreds and thousands of pensioners and middle class people around the world. Therefore, I think lack of education may contribute in diminishing the level of quality of minds, but cannot be the root cause of mental corruption. I have also seen some illiterate people more virtuous than many people having higher university degrees. The farce of the modern education system is that we seem to be educated only in terms of subjects for a particular profession or vocation, and we do not seem to inculcate the virtues of life. If higher education enlightens our mind, then we should have been in firm control of our emotions, greed, and actions. But it is not. And that is why we are incapable of thinking beyond ourselves. This is also the reason that many so-called educated people are suffering from mental strife, tensions in personal relationships, vanity, and clash of egos. There is an absolute dearth of humanly quality, humanly compassion, flexibility or compromise, sense of sacrifice, and adjustments with others in their personality. In this situation, when we are ourselves mentally corrupt on personal levels, then how can we become nice human beings and make our society or nation corruption free? That's a question mark. In the words of the former President of India, Abdul Kalam Azad, quote, if a country is to be corruption free and become a nation of beautiful minds, I strongly feel there are three key societal members who can make a difference. Their father, the mother, and the teacher. Quote closed. Therefore, I strongly believe that the process of corrupting our minds starts at home and gradually transcends to our society and then the nation at large. And in order to hide our mental perversion, we point fingers towards politicians and government officials. The degree of corruption in people determines the character of a nation, and it also points that how farcical and hypocritical we are. The famous Austrian writer of 19th century, Karl Kraus, said, quote, corruption is worse than prostitution. The latter might endanger the morals of an individual. The former invariably endangers the morals of the entire country. Quote closed. Now, it would be quite interesting to see how countries in the world are ranked in case of corruption in their countries. On a world level, some nations are less and some are more corrupt. The Transparency International monitors the level of corruption in every country. As per their 2012 report, top 10 less corrupt countries from top to bottom, 1 to 10 are number 1, Denmark, New Zealand, Singapore, Finland, Sweden, Canada, Netherlands, Australia, Switzerland, and Norway. And top 10 most corrupt countries from bottom to top, that is 178 to 168, are Somalia, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Iraq, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Sudan, Chad, Burundi, and Equatorial Guinea. In between them, Germany ranks 15, Japan ranks 17, UK ranks 20, USA ranks 22, France ranks 25, Italy ranks 67, and India ranks 87. Based on the above ranking, one can presume the percentage of people being corrupt in a country. The percentage of corruption also determines the quality of life in a country. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, has analyzed 34 member countries in 11 categories, including income, housing, jobs, community, education, environment, civic engagement, health, life satisfaction, safety, and work-life balance, etc. As per their survey, 10 countries with the highest quality of life from top to bottom are Australia, Sweden, Canada, Norway, Switzerland, United States, Denmark, Netherlands, Iceland, and United Kingdom. Therefore, to sum up, there is no quick fix for removing corruption from our society unless we change ourselves or a social revolution of mammoth scale takes place, in which not the leaders but the rule of law is firmly and diligently established. In the current situation, if a leader with high moral values will try to remove corruption from the society, then we will not let it happen. Because we are ourselves corrupt in many ways in our daily chores of personal lives. And if we make a baby step today in this direction by introducing compulsory subjects on moral values and ethical standards for students of grade 1 to 12, then it will take at least, to my mind, 3 generations to change the mentality and the way we think and do certain things. On this topic on my blog, I had received about 18 comments from worldwide professionals from countries like Canada, Brazil, Sweden, France, USA, Poland, India, Sri Lanka, Nigeria, Australia, Netherlands, etc. If you have liked this lecture, then you may also look for my lectures on other unique topics on this YouTube channel, and do not forget them to post your comment. Thanks and bye for now. Have a nice day. Bye for now.